Hello, welcome to today's Q&A session about raising bilingual children. My name is Rita Rosenbach. I am the author of the book Bringing Up a Bilingual Child. I'm also the creator and driving force behind the website multilingualparenting.com. Today I will be answering 3 questions that have been sent in advance, and if there are any questions while I'm on air, I'll pick those up as well. So without further ado, I will start with Laura's question. Laura asks a question about which language or how she should instruct her toddler's nursery personnel about when her child speaks minority language at the nursery, when the nurses don't understand. So the situation is that which is very good. Laura's 2.5-year-old knows the minority language, which is Greek, possibly better than English, which is the majority language, and also the language of the nursery school. And so sometimes he's only 2.5, so it's quite natural that he uses both English and Greek because they're both strong languages for him. So Laura's question is, on the occasions where the nursery staff cannot understand him, how should they ask him to speak English? Laura's feeling is that they shouldn't tell him that they can't understand him. And I agree with you about that, Laura. With a 2.5-year-old, you ask whether they should ask him to speak English. Well, that is also not necessarily a concept that your 2.5-year-old understands yet. So if they really don't understand what he's saying, then my natural instinct would be to ask around it. And also what they can do is that they confirm that yes, is that, or they can ask, is that how your daddy says it? And then they can ask, how does mommy say it? Because that's a concept that your child understands. There's daddy's language and there's mommy's language. And at the nursery, they only understand daddy's language, so they might get around it like that. But asking around, usually you can find out what a 2.5-year-old can communicate if it's urgent. I would also, if you haven't already done so, speak to the nursery staff about the situation, and this might not be at all as big an issue that you might feel that it is. But in any case, it's always good to communicate with the nursery and school in situations like this. And if they feel that it could be useful, then you can give them a list of words that he frequently uses in Greek, so that they can figure out what he's saying. But yes, I do agree. It's not very helpful to say, I don't understand what you're speaking to a small child. Because even if a child wasn't bilingual, let's say he spoke only English, quite often it is not possible to understand what a 2.5-year-old says. And what do? You ask around, you give examples, show things. You just use your imagination about how to find out what the little one wants to communicate. A good question is that if your son uses a word that they don't understand, they can just start by asking, where is it? And then he might go somewhere if he wants some water, or if he wants a specific toy, or he might point something. Just using, I would say, just common sense, and trying to find out what the little bilingual wants to say. So, but go and speak to them. Have a chat with the nursery staff. The next question, actually, I have two similar questions. They're from Fran and Corey, and both are having several languages in the family, and both are also on the move, and there will be an additional language added to the set of languages that a child is already learning. So to start with Fran's question, she and her husband, they live in the UK. She speaks Italian, he speaks English, and because they have spent half a year in Italy, her 4-year-old daughter is fluent in Italian, so and now since they're back, English is caught up, so their daughter actually knows both Italian and English really well. That's fantastic, well done. So now they have already moved quite a few times, but within the UK, so the language setup hasn't changed. However, now they are about to move to Bahrain, so there will be another language in the mix, which is Arabic. Unfortunately, Fran, you do not mention how long you're going to stay in Bahrain. If you're online, please add it in the comments, because that will have make a difference to your decision in my mind. If you're staying a shorter time, less than a year, then you need to consider whether it's worth it adding Arabic to the mix for your daughter, especially if you won't have any other exposure. If you then move away from an Arabic speaking area and there won't be any exposure for her, and neither of you speak Arabic. But let's say you stay for a longer time. You also don't mention whether you yourself, if you're going to learn Arabic, whether you can be any support to her. That's also a thing that plays in. So you have plans of registering her to an English and Arabic school, which means that she would have Italian at home and English at home, and then the school would be bilingual in Arabic and English. Always when there's a question about school, the first thing that I recommend parents is to find out about the school. Make sure the school itself is a good one, that it has got the kind of atmosphere you want from a school, that the teachers sees that the teaching and everything. So forgetting about the languages to start with, first make sure that the school is a good one. I know I love languages. I love making sure that children can grow up to speak several languages, but I would not recommend anyone putting in a school just because of the language. The school itself first has to be a good one. It needs to fit you and your parenting style and what you expect from a school. And then if that is a yes, then go on and see if you can find if the school offers a language program, is a dual language school or bilingual school, whichever way it describes itself, then go for it. With regards to the school, I wouldn't be able to recommend it because I don't know what their expectations are. So before you enroll her, speak to the school, see what kind of expectations does the school have. Do they already want her to know some Arabic before she starts, or will they start from scratch? So that's one thing an important thing, because one of what you are concerned about, let me just read your comment, is it would be such a pity for her to miss out on this chance to learn Arabic, but on the other hand, I do not want to put her under too much strain. I think she would be fine coping with adding Arabic, because at home nothing will change. You will still speak Italian and her daddy will speak English, so that will stay the same as it has been for a while now. What I would recommend to you, because you mentioned in your message as well that you switch to English in certain situations, that if you I would recommend that you try to stick to Italian as much as possible, not because of the mixing, but because of the routine and because of the amount of exposure that your daughter will get. If she starts nursery or school and she spends most of the time there, and then the evenings, if I presume your home language is English, then you speak English, there will be in the end very little time when you can speak Italian to her. So if you want to make sure that sticks and stays and you maintain the level she's got and at the moment, and develops her Italian, then I would recommend that you speak Italian with her as much as possible. So yes, if you're staying in Bahrain for a considerable amount of time, I see if it's a good school, I see no reason not to put her in there. But of course, it's one thing to plan things in advance and decide that, well, this is how we think it's going to work. When you're there, when you see the setup and how your daughter is getting on, then you will know whether she feels okay and if the school is the right one. But in principle, I would say yes, this is a fantastic opportunity for her to learn Arabic. But you need to think about, because maybe you decide to stay forever in Bahrain, but if not, since you have already moved a few times, then you need to think about also how to, if she goes to an Arabic school or a bilingual school, how to maintain her Arabic skills once you leave from there. So try to have that in mind. Ideally, learn Arabic yourself as well. So maybe you can switch to speaking Arabic one day a week or something like that. So that was Fran's question. And I have another question here, which is similar but different countries, partly different languages. This question is from Corey. Thank you, Corey, for sending it in via Facebook. That's the way you can do this and send the questions in. There's always a message button under the adverts when I put up the adverts about these sessions. If you send me a message through there, I will make sure to pick up your question during that specific session. So Corey's question. They live in Denmark. She speaks English with their 4-year-old daughter, and her husband speaks Danish. So that's clear at the moment. The daughter also speaks Danish at the kindergarten. However, they are planning to move to Sweden in about a year. And she's got 2 questions about this. First question is whether they should start speaking Swedish in preparation for the move, or should they focus on Danish and English until then? And then the other question is about the school. So to the first question, Corey, if you're online, please do comment if you have any further questions or comments. So since Swedish and Danish are similar languages. It's considerably easier to learn Swedish if you already don't know Danish. So that's one reason. There's not that urgent a need for you to focus on Swedish prior to the move. Also, when you move to Sweden, and as I understand it, this is a permanent move, then you will have two minority languages at home. You will have Danish and English that will compete with the Swedish exposure that will increase and become more prevalent in your daughter's life. So for that reason, I would recommend that you focus on the English and the Danish now, to make sure to give it a really good foundation, and so that you have a routine in place, that you always speak English and your husband speaks Danish, and you stick to it. So I wouldn't recommend switching to Swedish now. She will be fine once they get to once you move to Sweden and she goes into school there, or nursery. I presume she's only 4. And so then about the school, you have found a really, quoting you here now, you have found a really great trilingual school with Swedish, English and French, and you've applied for your daughter for it. So there are 3 languages at school. Would be Swedish, English and French, plus Danish at home, and you ask if that's too much. Again, I would, but it seems that you have already found out about the school because you mentioned that it's a really great one. So I think I presume that it's up to your standards, and you're happy with the school itself and the way they teach. Depending on how they juggle the 3 languages in the schools, you mentioned that the Swedish is the primary language. So my presumption is that certain topics taught in English and French. I wouldn't say this is too much. She will, if it's the main primary language at the school, she will learn Swedish through there. English is already one of her languages, so the additional language would be French for her, and then Danish at home. In that scenario, it is very important for your husband to always stick to Danish with her, to make sure that the Danish stays active and she develops her Danish skills. So I would, if you haven't already been in touch with the school, I would get in touch with the school, ask about how the languages are taught at that age. I would presume it's very much in a fun and engaging way, and I don't think it's too much for your daughter. However, I do recommend strongly that you stay very consistent in your language use at home, because there will be in not only 1 but 2 other languages that compete for the exposure time for your daughter. Again, keep an eye on it, how it goes, and be sure that you're happy with how the school is giving or introducing the languages, and bringing them up with all the 3 languages. Sounds exciting. There are not many schools that do that, so I would love to hear from you once you're in Sweden, and let me know how it goes. I can't see any other questions at the moment in the comments, so those were the 3 ones that I was dealing with today. But I wanted to, since 2 questions was about moving country, I would like to recommend another book which is co-written by a great friend of mine, Ruth von Reken, but it's The Third Culture Kids. So if you're moving from one country to another with your kids, this is a must read. It will prepare you for what's ahead, and then what the concept of the third culture kids really means, and how you can support your child. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening, and please keep on sending in those questions. There's a lot more information on the website on multilingualparenting.com. There's a Q&A archive with more than 100 questions, where you might find the answer to questions you have, but still keep them coming. Thank you very much, and have a good day or night or evening, morning, wherever you are. Thank you. Bye.